Okay, from today we are going to start a new series of video through which I will try to cover each and every portion regarding AIDS. AIDS is responsible for a particular virus, that is HIV or human immunodeficiency virus. Now, this HIV virus is also known as another name, which is retrovirus. So today we are basically going to learn that why this HIV virus is also called as a retrovirus. So to know this process, at first we have to know three things. The first one, that each and every virus is nothing but a protein which is functionally active. So what is virus? Virus is nothing but a protein that is functionally active. The second one which you have to know is that the central dogma process. And the last one which you have to know, that the central dogma process will always start from DNA. In case of human, the central dogma always start from DNA. What is DNA? DNA is our genetic material, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, the second thing, the central dogma process. DNA will convert into, from DNA it will convert into RNA, and from RNA they will produce some protein. Now, protein may be structural protein or it may be functional protein. Structural protein is that kind of protein which is necessary for our bodybuilding, and functional protein is kind of protein that is necessary for our activities, like enzyme. Enzyme is a kind of functional protein, and structural protein like collagen is an example of structural protein. Now, this is the process of central dogma. DNA will translate into RNA and RNA will translate into protein. The process through which DNA will convert into RNA is known as transcription, and the process through which RNA will convert into protein is known as translation. And protein may be two types. One is the structural protein, other one is the functional protein. This is the process of central dogma. Now, let's suppose this is our HIV virus. In case of human, the genetic material is always DNA. In our normal biological world, the genetic material is always DNA. But in case of HIV virus, the genetic material which is present inside this virus is not DNA. It is RNA. The genetic material is not DNA. The genetic material is RNA. Now, whenever this virus will enter in our body or in our cell, at that time, it will try to increase its number. Now, to increase its number, virus will have to go through this process, through this central dogma process, so that it will produce more and more number. Now, if you look at this process, the process will start from DNA, which I have mentioned in the third point. The central dogma always start from DNA. But if you look the genetic materials of this virus, the genetic materials of this virus is not DNA. The genetic materials of this virus is RNA. Now, in normal case of central dogma, if the genetic materials is RNA, then this process will not run out. Now, to run this process, the RNA must have to convert into the DNA. The conversion of RNA to DNA is known as reverse transcription. Once the virus RNA will convert into DNA through reverse transcription process, at that time the DNA will again convert into mRNA and genomic RNA. And mRNA will convert into protein, and this protein will this genomic RNA produce new HIV virus. So this is the whole mechanism. Let me repeat again this process. This is our HIV virus, and the genetic materials of this HIV virus is RNA. But in case of human, the genetic materials is not RNA. The genetic material is DNA. Now, to run this central dogma process, the process will always start from DNA. DNA will translate into RNA, and RNA will translate into protein. This protein is necessary for the virus. The functionally active protein is nothing but a virus. Now, whenever this HIV virus will diffuse into our normal human cell, at that time it will not able to run through this central dogma process because the genetic materials of this virus is RNA. Due to this reason, the virus RNA will convert into DNA via reverse transcription process. And again, the DNA will convert into mRNA via transcription process. And from this mRNA, they will produce a protein which is functionally active via translation and also produce a genomic RNA. And this protein will bind with this genomic RNA and will produce a new virus cell, that is HIV virus. So this is the process how HIV virus will multiply in our body. And as this virus is go through this reverse transcription process, due to this reason, the HIV virus is also called as a retrovirus. Retro means reverse, back again. So that is the reason the HIV virus is also called as a retrovirus. So I think this was it's sufficient to know that why this HIV virus is also called as a retrovirus, because the viral RNA will convert into DNA through reverse transcription process. Due to this reason, the HIV is called as a retrovirus. Now I have to share new things with you that within few days I will going to upload a new series of video, and those video will be in Bengali, so it will be helpful for the student who are belongs to Bengali medium, and those video will be helpful for those students who are basically in 9th or 10th standard. So thank you very much for watching my video.